Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG. Welcome to another Commander video. Today we're going to have another little chat. Today we're going to go over some things I wish I knew when I started playing Commander. I've been playing Commander for about... Journey into Nyx was released May 2nd, 2014. Damn, I'm old. But in that time, I feel I've learned a thing or two. So the idea is I'm going to share the things I've learnt with all of you. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel, give the video a like, helps everything out. So to kick us off, if you're starting completely from scratch and you want to get into Commander, what is the best place to start? Well, buy a Precon. One of the reasons I think why Commander is one of the most popular formats is that from a product point of view, it's the easiest to get into. There's a Precon in every set nowadays, meaning there are just so many of them out there. Some are ridiculously cheap as well. It's the one Magic product you can just buy and be ready to go with. Look for a deck in the colours that you like, look at the face commander. If you think it's cool, go ahead and get it. It's a great place to start. Even if later on, if you want to move on to something else, a Precon just gives you so many staples that you're going to play in decks going forward. They are honestly just fantastic. When I was starting, I really wish I knew this. I bought basically every card from the Merrin Precon over a couple of months at a much higher cost than just buying the Precon. Do not make that mistake. When it comes to building a deck for yourself, one thing I wish I found earlier was a deck building template or a deck skeleton. There's a ton of these out there. Most Commander content creators will have one. I used the Command Zone one early on. I've put mine on screen here. Basically what this does is lets you shortcut a lot of the building process. It lets you cut down that large stack of maybe cards into a deck. It also means that when you have the deck together, it's going to function. Again, I'll put mine in the description below, and I'll put a link to the Command Zone's current one in the description as well. But no matter what one you end up using, the main one is finding one that works for you, so that you have this good base. You can always fine-tune it later. We're just trying to make the first pass of the deck easier for everyone. We're trying to make the deck play consistently, and that's what having a deck template is really great at. If people do want a full video where I break down my deck template in more detail, let me know down in the comments. But generally, this is a starting point I use for my decks and my deck decks, and I found it works pretty well. Some other deck building bits that I've found really useful is run as many different Wincons in your deck as possible. I say this because I've generally found the more ways a deck has of winning, the more likely I am to replay that deck. I think this is especially important when you're starting out, as it gives your deck variety, so it doesn't play the same way every time. That variety I find very important. Over the years, I've had plenty of decks I've built, but because they've only had one real way of winning, I found I end up doing that a couple of times, and then it's like, cool, I've done that, that's not as interesting to me anymore. I know if you're starting out, that sounds easier said than done, but big, cool, evasive creatures can be a win-con, a combo can be a win-con, a way of making your commander unblockable can win you a game, giving your creatures more stats can win a game. Think about how you can mix up a deck. Honestly, I think you'll enjoy a deck more with that in mind. Next up we have a big one, and that is that power level of a deck does not equal fun. The average cycle of a Commander player is you're going to start with your first deck, and then you try to upgrade it as much as possible, going stronger and stronger, until you end up with something really strong, that realistically you don't actually play that much anymore. Normally that's because no one likes playing against it, because we're all at various points on that curve. Some are ahead of you, and it feels like you're constantly chasing them. Some are behind you, and they feel like they are chasing you. But when you get to the top of that curve, then your powerful deck sits on the shelf for a year, taking up a bunch of good cards, gathering dust, because either you don't play it, or if you do, everyone wants to kill you first and you get ganged up on every single time. It's a phase we all go through, don't worry about it. I've had some really disgusting Edric and Eureka decks over the years, but I don't have them together anymore. And that's because, again, power level does not always equal fun. The deck I enjoy playing the most at the moment is my Shadows Matters deck, a deck built around running suboptimal creatures with a weird old form of evasion. All the decks I've built over the last few years have technically been less powerful than some of my earlier decks, but when I build a deck now, I end up playing it more and more because I'm not aiming at raw power level, I'm aiming to do the cool thing that the deck is built for. Now I know everyone is different, and if you and your playgroup like playing dumb, cool, busted stuff, cool, good for you, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. For most players though, I think this will be applicable. The next thing I wish I knew when I started playing Commander is how powerful Goldfishing a deck can be. Now Goldfishing is one of the best things you can do during the deck building process to make your deck better. Once you've got the first pass of your deck together, I would goldfish it as much as possible. Get a playmat out when you're watching TV or something like that, and just start playing the deck. Do this a bunch of times. Try and notice, are you able to curve out okay? Are you consistently hitting your land drops? Do you get to a point around turn 8 or 9 where you think you could be winning a game? Assume you'll have to kill a creature or two at some point. Think about what would happen if someone board wiped at certain points in the game. You can then take that and make informed adjustments to your deck. If most of the time you weren't playing at least a spell a turn, look at lowering the average mana value of your deck. Basically, run more cheap spells. If on average you're not hitting your lands every turn, either run more lands or run more card draw. This testing costs you nothing and lets you find out what's wrong with the deck before you take it out and play it against your friends for the first time. The next thing it does is it gives you a much better understanding of how your deck plays. This brings us on to our next point, and it's one I think has got way more relevant in the last couple of years, and that's prioritize how your deck works, not your opponents. Magic has just got so more complex over the last few years. The average word count on cards is only going up. It can be really daunting when you start playing to keep in your head what everyone else is doing and what everyone could be doing, how all the cards on the battlefield interact with each other, all that kind of stuff. The shortcut to this is just don't do it. Now, I'm not saying zone out and just ignore what your opponents are doing, not at all. What I'm saying is a way to make it easier for yourself is to try and just focus on the cards that are either stopping you from winning the game or cards that you think are about to let your opponent win the game. That is all. If your opponent is sat there with some convoluted value engine, cool, awesome, more power to them. Rather than being hyper-focused on trying to understand every intricate detail of their deck, just focus on what you are going to be doing on your next turn. Work out how best to sequence your cards, how to pilot your deck towards one of your win conditions. This is a much better use of your brain power. So that's playing the game. Let's move on a little bit. Another thing I wanted to touch on is resources that are available to you as a Commander player. Now obviously there's YouTube videos like this that can help when it comes to building certain decks or general advice on Commander. There's also plenty of websites with articles if reading is more your thing. Some websites I use the most when deck building specifically is firstly Scryfall and then EDHREC. Scryfall is basically Google but for Magic cards. It is by far the best tool when it comes to building any kind of deck. Its advanced search feature is extremely powerful, and it's a great way of finding something that you want. For Commander especially, you can input your Commander's colors into it, and then any search you do will be filtered by those colors. You can then search for text on the card if there's something specific that you're after. You can search by creature type if you're doing a Type All Matters deck. If you can think of it, there's a way of narrowing it down and search for it on Scryfall. The second website that I use a lot is EDHREC. EDHREC basically looks at other decks people have built, sees what cards are generally see play in those decks, and recommends you those cards. You still need to break down those cards into the sections of the deck, like card draw, ramp, blah 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 blah, but if you're looking for inspiration, it's a great place to start. Now, I do love EDHREC, and there's a chance you might even be watching this video on their website, but there can be a bit of danger with it, and that it can lead to decks becoming very similar. So personally, I tend to only use it once I've built a deck to check if there's anything obvious that I've missed. But if you're starting off and just looking for help to build a deck, or you're looking for ways to upgrade a Precon, it is a great tool to give you some suggestions on cards to include. You then have sites like Moxville, Tapped Out, and Architect. These are sites that let you upload a deck list so it can be stored for future reference, and they're also useful for giving you breakdowns of the deck statistics, things like curve, color breakdown, that kind of thing. Now, I don't normally use these for decks I'm not talking about on the channel, but I know players who find this really helpful, especially if you're going to take apart the deck in the future. It means you can rebuild it again very easily. Changing tack a little now, I want to talk about some organization. Just some tips for organizing your decks and organizing your collection. One thing I really wish I knew when I started playing Commander was to stick to one type of sleeves. The reason for this is having all your decks in the same sleeves means if any of the sleeves break, you're likely to have a bunch lying around and it's easy to swap out. I've got so many deck boxes with 97 or 98 sleeves on them in different colors, it's really frustrating because they're basically useless to me. Now, I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but if you're watching Dragon Shield, sort me out. But personally, I only use Dragon Shield matte black sleeves. They're just very consistent and they're very reliable, and a lot of places sell them. I used to use the magenta or the hot pink color, but they were slightly opaque so didn't work with double-sided cards. But since I swapped to the matte black, I have not had any issues. Now the next bit of advice contradicts the last one immediately, but it is a nice little hack, and that's to put your Commander in a different color sleeve to the rest of your deck. This is so when you inevitably shuffle it back into your deck, it's really easy to find. Now, even if you've only ever bought the same color of sleeves, you can ask a game store, you can ask a friend nicely to just trade for one in a different color. It just makes your life a little bit easier. Honestly, it's a nice little hack. Then something you don't have to do right away when you start playing Commander, but will definitely help you once you've started going to a couple of pre-releases and started collecting some more cards, is start thinking of a way to organize your collection. It doesn't have to be super serious, it doesn't have to be super meticulous, but having a way of easily finding cards that aren't just in piles on your desk will help you not only build decks, but will help you maintain your collection so you can trade for other cool things. I personally have mine in long boxes. I have one for each color, and each one of them is separated by mana value. I actually also have a rule that I'm not going to get more storage than this, so if I end up with more cards than this, I need to find room for them by cutting some cards. That is what personally works for me. You do not need to copy that, but it's a way I know where to find cards. If you just want to start with a fat pack box and organize them by color, that is a fantastic place to start. It's just find something that works for you so you can easily find your cards. Talking of collections, let's move on to some ways of making your finances go a little bit further. Now, being honest, I don't really give financial advice on this channel. Everyone's budgets are different, and to be honest, how you spend your money is entirely your own business. But what I'm going to go over here is some things that I've learned that have helped me not spend a bucket load of extra money, because Magic, as we all know, can be an expensive hobby. The first thing I want to talk about is buying multiples of cards. This is something I did a bunch when I started playing. Every green deck needed a Sylvan Library, every blue deck needed a Rhystic Study, every deck needs a Mana Crypt. I need to buy these cards again and again. No, you do not need to do this. This is if you're playing Commander. If you're playing competitive formats, then sure, you might need 4 of stuff. Obviously, you can spend your money however you want. But honestly, if you just buy ones of cards that are a little bit pricey, you'll be better off in the long run. Cards like Rampant Growth that are less than 50p, sure, go ahead, buy a couple, go ham. But you'll quickly realize every deck doesn't need to be optimized. You don't need to run the same strong cards in every deck. If anything, searching for interesting cards that do something cool or synergize with your deck is more rewarding and you'll make your deck more unique. When you're starting off especially, if there's cards you want in different decks, just move them around rather than buying multiple cards. Or better yet, just proxy the card. Something else I want to talk about when it comes to buying cards is when I think is the best time to buy cards from a new or current set. Now, I've generally found that 3 to 4 weeks after pre-release is normally a good time to buy cards. Again, I'm not giving financial advice here, nothing is a guarantee, line goes up, line goes down, all that stuff. But this is when, if I'm going to buy cards from a set, this is when I pick them up. The reason for this is that the set is still new, so it's still in print. People have been opening a bunch of packs. People are looking to sell cards on the secondary market. It's generally time where there's the most stock online at any point, and this generally means that the cost on average will be the lowest until those cards get a reprint again. There's often one card that might fall through the gap and get picked up in a format that becomes really expensive. It does happen. But if you're going to buy the cards from a set anyway, this is when I would personally buy them, so it's what I would recommend to other people. The other thing with buying cards is that if there's a card that's only been printed once, and it's only really a Commander card, and they can print it again, I just would not buy it. It will get reprinted at some point and the cost will come crashing down. There are so many examples of this. Like Oracle of Moldiah used to be like $30 to $40 for absolute years. 2 reprints later, it's less than $5. Arcane Signet used to be $20 when it was first printed, and now it's less than $1, and it comes with basically every Precon. Another thing I wish I was more confident with when I started playing Commander is that if there's a card that I'm not sure works in my deck, but it's a little bit pricey, proxy it and playtest it. Now, it's always best to talk with your playgroup when it comes to proxies, but I've never really come across a situation where someone's got really annoyed if someone has a proxy because they are playtesting a card that they think will synergize or be cool in their deck. If you're proxying something for power level purposes, that's when people tend to be a little bit less okay with it. I'm not sure if this is a great example, but your playgroup is more likely to be annoyed at you for running a proxy of a Mana Crypt in a regular deck just because it's a good card you've seen people play. However, if you were building a coin flip deck and you wanted to try it out there because it cares about coin flips, people are less likely to have an issue with it. I've said this before on this channel, I'm just becoming more and more fine with proxies in general. I would still try to make nice ones that are at least legible and everyone knows what the card is and the card does, but like with most things, talk to your playgroup beforehand, be honest with them and what you are doing, it should all be fine. Right, okay, I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. I hope people found this video helpful. If you have any tips or things you wish you'd learnt earlier when you started playing Commander, put them down in the comments below. Help out other people watching this video. And who knows, maybe there'll be a part 2 for this video sometime in the future. But until next time, you've been watching 2SweetMTG. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.